And the people that I find myself frustrated with are the ones who, when they hear that, they don't care. They don't care about, they care more about protecting their beliefs than whether or not they're true.
Or so they write you off as someone who's an emotional, you're mean, you're mean.
I usually just give up because, I mean, after a point, it just doesn't make sense. And I was wondering if I don't know.
I have a couple of suggestions for you. One thing Jeff D does is he makes very sure that the person he's arguing with acknowledges the point that Jeff made. And if Jeff has won an argument, he forces them to say, yes, I concede this point, before going on to the next thing. It's tiresome, but I think it's a good strategy.
The other thing is that if you get the sensation that it's just going to go from one thing to the other, Jeff's the best person to make recommendations about this, I guess, is to say, okay, give me your best argument.
And that's the one I was going to talk about next. Yeah. Get them to start at the beginning. Say, give me your best argument, the one that is going to convince me or whatever, and there is no better argument, right? And and refer to your God. Pray to your God. Make sure you two agree that it's the very best argument, right? And then when you refute it, then you're done, right?
But I'm done, but they're not. They switch to a different,
Yeah. Well, you
topic,
have to get them to agree early on that they're going to present the best one. My tactic that I'm presenting today is I say, hey, there are these three problems, and I state pretty early on in the argument that if you use any of these tactics, you're lying to me. You're full of BS, right? And I say, the minute you hit one of these landmines, you're dead. I win, and I'm not going to argue with you anymore. And I stop because going on, let me jump up a level. I debate to learn myself. I don't believe that I'm going to convince very many people. And I try to debate in public forums so that people who are listening in, the lurkers, get the benefit of seeing this argument play out, and they can hopefully learn from it, either the people sitting on the fence or really the audience there. And so often when you're doing one-on-one debates with someone who's got their mind made up, it's a waste of time. And
I don't. I usually do it so that there's other people, because that's also my goal for the audience to make up their own mind. So yeah, and I like the three things you mentioned, and I also like the what Matt just said also at the beginning about do you care thing. I'm going to use that one as well.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to take up any of your time more because it's already midnight here. Just wanted to tell you. For the guys at Ustream that made fun of me for 2 + 2 = 2 thing, and I'm not German, I'm Serbian. I'm also vice president of Serbian Atheists, a new organization if you can call it that. And you can imagine how popular we are. And, I'm arguing people that, our beast is just like your beast, but they think it's completely different. And it's just annoying. But, yeah, just wanted to say thank you, guys. I'm
good luck to you.
Using a lot of your arguments, and I love it. So keep up the good work.
Oh,
Thanks a lot for calling.
You too.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks.
So you want to?
Yeah, let me go a little bit more.
Yeah.
We've talked about these three pillars, and what I wanted to do is sort of talk about some of the common things we hear from the audience, and maybe talk about how they fit in here. Sometimes we theists hear, Jesus died for your sins. Okay, so first off, this is just a bald assertion, right? That A, Jesus died. B, there was some purpose to it. And 3, there's this sort of guilt thing going on that, oh, I have sins, I'm an evil, awful person, and it's going to make up for it, and I should feel guilty about this. So I would call this both, a blatant assertion without justification and an emotional manipulation. So I think it fits in those two categories. Pascal's wager is one we hear all the time. It's better to believe, briefly, Pascal's wager is better to believe and be wrong than and not risk going to hell. And this is also, there's a lot of problems with this. I did a whole show on it once. One problem is it's again a false dichotomy, You know, we're not only talking about the Christian God, there's a whole mess of gods out there, and how do you make them all happy, and how do you avoid the hells or whatever, how do you avoid going to Hades or whatever hell they've dreamed up in their religions, and pretty soon it's just pretty crazy. It's an emotional thing because it's an appeal to hedonism, right? You're trying to avoid being tortured after you die, and there's no reason to believe that anything is going to exist after you die to be tortured. You know, you can torture the atoms that were part of you at some point, but I don't know, seems kind of silly. It also misses the probability of God's existence. So when you try to do the math on this sort of thing, that actually is an important fact to play in here. Here's another one. Atheists lack morals, and morals come from God. Therefore, you know, atheists can't be moral. Well, this is another bald assertion. It's an assertion without evidence. It's trying to steal credit for morality for God, which is another false thing. It's an emotional appeal because it appeals to the sense of superiority of Christians that, oh, I believe, therefore I must be moral. So that's it for today. Call in with your own examples. Call in with your examples of things you've heard that fall in these categories, or things you've heard or arguments you've heard that don't fall into it. I'd love to expand this list, but I haven't heard any decent argument for God that didn't fall in these categories, or that I haven't heard any argument at all that didn't. Let's not qualify it with decent.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's take some more calls, man.
So, as a reminder, we're on for just under another hour, and after we're done here, we'll be going to dinner at Thread Gills, 301 West Riverside Drive. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. In addition, I wanted to make sure that I announced the thing that I skipped in the actual announcements, which is that registration is now open for our bat cruise, our annual bat cruise. Austin has one of the, or the largest population of metropolitan bats in the world. Mm-hmm. Millions. And so on September 25th, we're going to be renting a boat going out on the lake from 6 to 8 p.m. And I think it's going to be preceded by a lecture from me and maybe some other stuff. And also for the people who are interested, after we're done, we get together and some of us go to Esther's Follies. But that is something that you'll need to book separately, that we're not doing as... It's just too much hassle to try and...
So it's my job to put that information up on the webpage. I haven't done that yet, but there'll be a whole day of activities starting early afternoon and going into the evening. So if you want to come to Austin and visit us, we'd love to have you. We try to make this our flagship event for out-of-towners to come visit us, and hopefully it'll be worth your while. And
it works. We've had people from Canada and Alaska and England and
all over the U.S.
Yeah.
So and it's a fun way to.
Space is limited.
Yeah, and the bats are cool to watch.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Plus, you can, if you bring the little kids along, you can tell them to like look up and open their mouth, and they'll, you know, maybe get a surprise.
Guano bombs.
All right, we got Hal from Manchester. How are you?
How you doing?
Good.
All right. I kind of described what I wanted to do to your guy a little wrong. My argument is about Chinese symbols and how they. I don't want to say they prove Genesis, but I want to say like it's evidence of a common source.
Okay, so you're claiming that the Chinese symbols predate the Bible and were influencing the Bible? Is that where you're going?
No, I'm saying like that's I'm at a loss of words here. I'm not really sure how to explain this.
I think I can help you. I think I can help you. Chinese.
I'll just go over it with you, and you'll get what I'm saying, I guess.
I think I already know what you're saying. Chinese characters are made up of a bunch of different symbols. It's not a phonetic language like English or an alphabet like that. It's a bunch of pictures that symbolize other things. And so there are people who say, if you look at, for example, the Chinese character for devil, it includes sub-characters within that character that are like garden and tempter and that type of stuff. And I know the Answers in Genesis site has this up there saying that this demonstrates that these 4,000-year-old characters, that people in China were aware of the creation story. Is that what your point was?
They were aware of the Jewish creation story, you're saying?
Yeah, that's the argument, that the nature of these characters for the word for devil is such that the person who created that character was aware of the Jewish creation story. Is that?
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I kind of misinterpreted what you were saying at first. Okay, but
so this is a question to you. Is this what you were talking about?
That's what you were talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what? I mean, there's three there's three possible.
I just think it's interesting.
There's three possible explanations. Either somebody who invented that character in the ancient Chinese writings was familiar with the Jewish creation myth and wanted to pass that along. That kind of makes sense, that you make a character that relates to the story. That's kind of the way Chinese works, although I'm not an expert. So that's one possibility, that the person who created that character was familiar with those stories. The other possibility is that people are seeing patterns in those characters, and that Chinese language in particular lends itself to finding patterns of words and other words. I'd say that that's also viable, considering that you can walk into any marketing department in China, and what they end up doing is twisting and turning their characters into, new fonts so that you portray more message and people read more into it than what the actual character's for. And the third possibility is that the Genesis account, the Jewish creation myth, is true, and that the God of the Jews decided to reveal this to a Chinese guy as well. Now, of the three, which is the least likely?
You see, now, if you ask me, the last option is the most likely, because
why?
This is going along with ancient Chinese, and these symbols supposedly predate any Jewish civilization.
Well, how is that possible? Doesn't that contradict your Bible? Wasn't the Jewish civilization the first?
Well, no, the Jewish civilization didn't always exist. That's something that came along after.
No. My next question would be okay, if somehow this creation story influenced China somehow, ancient China, what else you got except a character?
No, we don't go do an okay and go on to that.
No, okay.
The reason is you're saying that it's more likely of those three possibilities that a God did it, and then you're saying that it's because the character predates Jewish culture. Well, that's in direct violation with what the Bible has to say. I mean, Adam and Eve, the formation.
This is what I'm saying. The Hebrews did not exist at the
so
first time of creation.
So what?
They exist.
So what? The story did.
It's a little coincidental that the Chinese characters existed before the Jews even existed.
No. Okay, I apologize, Hal. You're being an idiot about this, and here's why. The story existed. If the story was true or not, the story existed. Are you saying that the story didn't exist for the Hebrews until after the Chinese invented the character? How is that possible?
That's what I've heard, is that these characters existed before the Hebrews came along and
let's think for a second.
Wrote down their stories.
Let's think for a second. If the Chinese character existed before the story existed, then clearly the story can't be true. Because if the story is true, then this is the story that was passed along from father to son, from Adam all the way to Moses. Now, those two things are in direct contradiction. Either this story existed within the zeitgeist of Hebrew culture before the nation of Jews became extant, or it did not. And if it did, then it's no surprise that a Chinese person might have found out about it and created a character. And if it didn't, then it's irrelevant that China has a character for this.
Well, you see,
it's reductive.
This is the point I'm getting at, though, right here, is that the Chinese, even though they were an isolated civilization from the Hebrews and stuff, and they existed before the Hebrews, and these characters were in existence before the stories came up. And what I'm saying is that they were already aware of the creation account.
So the Chinese existed before the Hebrews, and they were aware of God's creation of the Hebrews.
Of the whole world.
Well, but oh wow.